Hello, and welcome to the Nova Conversation. I'm Steve Waltz.
And I'm Jeff Progalski.
And today's episode, Jeff, is all about teams.
Teams, yes. Football teams, hockey teams, basketball teams. Is that what we're talking about?
Well, you know, with the coronavirus going on and no sports, I think we should just talk about our beloved sporting teams, right? I'm sure our listeners would like that.
That's actually, I think there is definitely some sports withdrawal. A year without March Madness just doesn't seem right. But yeah, we're actually talking about Microsoft Teams, aren't we?
Microsoft Teams, and for some people that might maybe be going, what's Microsoft Teams? It used to have a couple of names, right? It used to be kind of derived from Skype. Is that correct?
Yeah. I think actually I would have to check the timelines to Skype years ago. Prior to that, they were actually had a messaging client that was called Microsoft Lync, and that was part of their BPOS, Business Productivity Online Suite, which is what Office 365 used to be called. And actually, since we're recording this in the second day of April, we can now announce that Microsoft is rebranding Office 365 as Microsoft 365. So they want to keep all of us partners on our toes, I guess. But Lync was Microsoft's kind of instant message communication client for a while. Then that got transitioned to Skype for Business, which added some functionality that the plain Skype client lacked, and then from there transitioned to the current iteration, which is Microsoft Teams, which is really I think a powerful collaboration and communication platform that especially in recent weeks, we've seen a huge spike in interest in as companies are looking to support a newly remote workforce.
And, I've had questions. My wife's a teacher, and they were using Zoom, and, there's been some stuff in the press lately about Zoom, and I sent her that information to send to her principal about the information about what Microsoft Teams is. But I was trying to explain to her, I'm like, Jeff and I, we talk on our computers. So, we've had, Skype, now Teams, for years. And so we're so used to working remote, and the productivity enhancement of doing that is huge. And I think, the benefit of being, Microsoft partners, you get access to the Microsoft software outside of just the basic, like Business Central that we use. So this, it's pretty cool, but I think it does offer, like people who are like, what's the difference between Zoom? What's the difference between, Teams? But I think there's some security issues, right, Jeff? It depends on when people are hopping into these Zoom meetings, right?
Right. Yeah. There's, I think though that one of the, I know I've also got a wife in education, and her school district is a Google school district. I know that my kid's school district is a Microsoft school district. There are pluses and minuses, of course, and strengths and weaknesses in all of these different platforms. My wife's district uses Google Hangouts as their, kind of collaboration platform. Microsoft typically, it's a little more difficult to work with outside people that don't have Microsoft accounts in order to use Microsoft Teams, even though there is a free version, completely free version of Teams that, you could allow people outside of your organization to get and connect to a Microsoft team meeting to communicate with you. That does require the person that's using the free version to get a Microsoft account, where some of these other solutions like Zoom and Slack, you still have to, the account creation process is a lot easier, and and so it's easier to include members outside your organization, which I think, in the education space, you've got parents and students, and it makes it a lot easier. But to your point, Zoom has really kind of taken off. It's sort of like a stock market darling. Its stock was shooting up while the rest of the market was crashing because of the utilization of it was going way up. But there's some supreme security concerns with that. As it becomes a bigger target to the hacking market, people start picking at the code. Obviously, Microsoft is not perfect, and people have been picking on Microsoft code for the last 30 plus years. But the fact that I've yet to experience a Teams meeting where someone who is uninvited can just hop on and take over the meeting. Nor have I read about any of the security concerns like stealing passwords, et cetera, that some of these other applications like Zoom have. But, that's certainly Microsoft is competing in that space. I think some of the applications like Slack and Zoom are really more it's not really an apples to apples comparison when you look at Teams for companies who are already on Office 365 or Microsoft 365 platform. You've already got the really tight integration for presence, what people are doing. So you get an email from someone, see the dot next to their name in Outlook, and that and then hovering over their name, you've got the ability, if you've got Teams loaded, you've got the ability to either reply to the email, instant message them, or call them, set up a meeting with them, etc. So just from hovering your mouse over that sort of integration doesn't happen out of the box with these other solutions. And there are abilities, there's ways to get there, loading in some third-party apps on top of those. But if you've already got an Office 365 subscription, any subscription that includes services on Office 365 / Microsoft 365 does include the Teams client. Now, that's not a Teams client that allows you to make and receive phone calls. You need some additional licensing for that. But if you've already are an Office 365 user, you should be checking out Teams. And I don't know what is like you have been. How long have you been at Innovia, Steve?
Believe it or not, May will be 5 years.
5 years. Wow. Well, congratulations early. So about half of your time you've spent on using Teams. I guess not quite that long, but what are some of the things that you like about having Teams as your I guess as your phone system? Maybe is what we'll start by asking.
Well, that's a great question, Jeff. And when I was basically in a pharma company, and we worked remote from our offices, but we didn't have any type of things like Team or Skype at the time. But I think what I like about it, well, one is since we started our podcast, every one of them has been recorded on Teams. Is that correct?
That is correct, actually, and I don't know if we were going to give out trade secrets, but yes,
yeah.
Teams can be the platform you build your podcast on.
And just learning the whole suite that Microsoft has with Office 365, like we can take this recording, we could put it in SharePoint, and then we have access to it, and you can kind of control if you want to who has access to it. And one of the things I think that I really like about it is once you learn how to navigate it, like we're talking, if we want to add somebody to the call, you can add somebody to the call. If you want to share a screen, if you have a couple screens working, you can share a screen. While you're looking at one, you could be sharing to one that other people are looking at. And you can really connect, we've connected people, Jeff, outside North America on team meetings. And also that if you send an invite to somebody to have a discussion with them, even if they don't have Teams, they can, download some software. They can either call in, they can click on the link. You can have a video call. You can have a audio call. So it offers, that flexibility in the chats. So like when you're listening to our podcasts. I mean, like you did a webinar yesterday, right, on how to launch Microsoft Teams quickly for remote flexibility. So while you were getting into the weeds, I was chatting with other people about your presentation, and so you didn't know that. as you were making
well,
fun
you
of
know,
but that's another story. That's okay. But
that's yeah.
it records the chat too. So you have like an audit trail if you're talking with people internally or externally. You can create your own. What's kind of cool is you can kind of create your own teams. So let's say I'm a small business owner, and I work with maybe my CFO or my director of operations. I can have just one where I just pull up where I have the chat with them. I can just instantly message the two of them, and then I have a record of that. Or I can have one for all the employees, or I can just have one-on-ones. So I know that's that there's some really cool benefits to that. Your calendar can be imported from Office 365, so you can get the little reminders. Beep, you got a call coming up. So obviously, Jeff, for me as a salesperson, there's a huge amount of benefits for it. So
yeah, and I think that's what I like best about having Teams as a phone system is now, of course, neither you nor I are administrators of the system, so we can't really speak to the complexity or lack thereof of the setup and keeping track of it. But in helping customers over the past few weeks migrate to a Teams phone system, it's actually pretty straightforward, and sort of tying this back into the conversation about security, et cetera. That was something that I mentioned in my webinar, is that Microsoft security is top notch. I mean, not perfect, but certainly enterprise grade security, and administering that is done through the Office 365 admin portal. Setting up policies and call routing, et cetera, is done in the Teams admin console. These are tools that your IT staff is already used to using. Keeping track of passwords and password policies, et cetera. Setting up Teams as your phone system is just that's just another efficiency you gain because you're already familiar with these tools. But getting back to the flexibility of the solution, I mean, having my cell phone ring at the same time as my desktop phone if I step away from my desk, or if I'm traveling, clients don't ever need to know that unless I'm unavailable to take calls, because I can have stuff ring through. Even when I'm at my desk, I know that most of the time recently I've actually gone to just using the built-in mic and speakers in my laptop without using a headset, because the call quality is good and my office is quiet enough. Now, that was maybe having my wife working from home, but I like just having the flexibility. If I need to take a call, I want it on a handset, I can just transfer the call to my cell phone without anyone on the other end knowing any better of it, and just having that flexibility, whatever device I want to use, being able to take the call, I think is great, especially for companies like Innovia, where we've got consultants that are flying all over the country and meeting with end users, and not just sitting at their home office like we will be for the next several weeks.
Right, and when I came over, I remember firing up the computer and I asked Tom, I go, "Where's my phone at?" He goes, "There it is." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." And, one of the cool things that you just said is that the difference between Skype, like Skype, the mobile app, just was not user friendly. It seemed like it just didn't want to play nice, and transferring calls where, I haven't even attempted to transfer a call from my computer to my phone. If you got to leave a meeting, right? Because my previous experience was so bad. But I'm glad you brought that up. And so, Jeff, a couple questions. I know you did your webinar, and you kind of get into licensing and all the different options of Office and stuff. But the question I'd like to ask is, if I'm a small business owner, medium-sized business owner, maybe we've had our software, ERP software on our servers, Office. We've been looking at Office 365, but now with what has happened, with the social distancing, and now people are being forced remote. where would you start? I mean, knowing what being a licensing expert and, and all obviously certified in the Office products, like what would you tell somebody out there like, okay, I need to get remote, if I need to get fast, what should I do? Where should they start?
Well, I think that what we've been finding with customers who have been transitioning the last couple of weeks is we've got sort of two scenarios. Most customers have an existing investment that they're comparing a Teams investment against. So if you are if you've got a phone server in a server rack at your office, and you've got some $200 desk phones sitting on people's desks, you want to do everything possible to get that investment to get you through this remote scenario. Unfortunately, that involves typically a lot of hoops. Like you're asking your staff to become sort of IT experts as they go home, and do we have most houses just have a Wi-Fi? Well, these phones aren't Wi-Fi. These phones need an Ethernet cable plugged into them, and so then you're gonna get them a network switch to plug into, and maybe like that will limit where in their house they can work. They probably also have to connect to a VPN. So those sorts of challenges are what makes a Teams subscription really attractive. And I would say that in general, to an Office 365 SKU, in order to turn that into a Teams phone solution for your user, it's $20 a month. And the nice thing about it is that $20 a month is, it's flexible. So you need it for 2 months, and then you don't need it anymore. You can add that for the remote users and then remove it. That's something that you can't do with a phone system, where if you're going to add users, you have to pay. And we certainly know all about recurring line. But in terms of your phone system with Teams, you don't need to have that. So if you're not looking at, so even in that case, I should say that investment where you've already got a $10,000 investment in a phone system, Teams can still be a great solution. And but certainly, like if you don't have that investment, I don't see how you can beat Teams from a money perspective. $20 a month is cheap for the features that you get. It truly is an enterprise class phone system, and so I'd definitely say that I would start by looking at Teams. Certainly, you want to do your due diligence and look at other solutions, but Teams gives you everything. It gives you the internal platform to collaborate, share documents, schedule meetings, etc., and then it gives you a complete phone system on top of it. That's a lot of functionality for $20. So that would be my recommendation.
So is Microsoft a phone company too?
They actually are. When you switch to a Teams phone system, Microsoft does assign you, and that's something that's I guess a question that I've been asked a lot. Everyone on that gets a Microsoft Teams phone client gets a number assigned from Microsoft, and in that case, Microsoft is your phone provider. They assign the number to you. Now you can bring your old numbers with you, obviously, but at the end of the day, some phone systems have a trunk line, and then people don't have individual direct dial numbers maybe that are available from the outside. They only have an 800 number and an extension. Teams replicates that, but ultimately everyone that has a Teams phone account has a number assigned by Microsoft. So at some point, I have to believe, I was looking up statistics. I think as of 2 weeks ago, Microsoft was reporting that Teams had 44 million daily active users. I have to think now that it's got to be over 50 million. So those aren't all phone system users, but at some point I have to think that Microsoft is going to be one of the biggest phone providers on the planet.
But there was 300 million people in the United States, and they had 50 million a day. Yeah. I mean,
Yep. And that's global usage, but
that's global. Okay. But,
yeah.
Those are big numbers. And, the whole message, when I did channel, it was just, when Satya kind of had this cloud first, mobile first mentality. And then all of a sudden it was like, here it is, it's here. And, the fact that a lot of even like the AX, which is now finance and operations, right, has their SaaS offering, and NAV, which is now Business Central, has their SaaS subscription model. And you tie that in with an Office 365. And it's, I guess we just take it for granted because, we use all this SaaS, right? And we just, I'm like, you're in Wisconsin, I'm in Indiana, and this is kind of how we've done business, and it's kind of hard to think that other companies aren't doing it this way, I guess, and so it's kind of cool. Like when first time I saw you do a demo on how you connected Office 365 to Business Central and did that sales quote out of Outlook, I was like, oh, that's cool, right? And
yeah.
And you can convert it to an order. There's so many things you can do with it. And, there's always opportunity cost. What's it going to cost me to move from my on-premise Office or my on-premise ERP system to go into the cloud? And, what about security? These are a lot of questions, but I know those are things we've talked about in other podcasts. But I think, Jeff, you really did a great job on going over a lot of what we just talked about on your webinar. And it'll be posted. If it's not already posted, you can go to our website, to Inovia.com. And when you get up to our website, there's a thing that has events, which basically talks about a customer conference and summit. And then we have a different section that really kind of gets into about, if you click on resources, there's a webinar library, and you click on that. We are, Jeff. It's already on there.
Sweet. Yeah, I think the other thing to note that is current and top of mind is that we now have the ability, as of yesterday, to provision free Teams. There's been a free version of Teams that's been out for a while. Microsoft refers to that as the freemium version because it's free. Plus, there's you can add to it and do some paid for stuff with that free version. But Microsoft, in response to the coronavirus, is giving 6-month trials that can be provisioned by your partner. So reach out to Inovia, and it's way better than just the freemium version of Teams. It's actually a Office 365 E1 SKU that gives you all of the Microsoft stack in terms everything except the Office suite. It gives you the Office web apps, but it gives you Exchange Online, SharePoint, Yammer, Stream. I mean, it's everything. Typically an $8 a month SKU, but for people who want to try out Teams, and you could even take those free SKUs for your organization, and then think about adding a phone system to that. The phone system SKUs would be an additional $20 per user, but it's something to think about in this in this time where we're all sort of trying to figure out what the next few months are going to be like business wise for us. Teams some capacity to look at some. So if you're not on Office 365 yet, this might be a great time to take advantage and to move your email. If you're capable of doing the mail migration yourself, which Microsoft believes most companies are, you could move, get off an aging Exchange box and get on Office 365 and not pay any licensing for your company for the next 6 months. That might be worth checking out.
That's a good point. And so what happens if let's say you're on the low SKU of Office 365 right now, and you're one of our customers, and they're like, is that got to create a new SKU, or do you add it onto it, or what happens in that, Jeff?
Well, so any service-based account, and that there's only, I think, 2 SKUs in Office 365 that aren't service-based, and that's if you're just paying for your Office desktop apps. Any other SKU is already going to include, so any of the services SKUs, small business premium, small business.
So they already have it, is what you're saying.
Yep. They do, and I showed yesterday when I analyzed our Office 365 customer base to see utilization. We were at like 33% of our customers are using that have Teams available to them are using Teams. So I expect that number to go up the next time I check in 30 days or so. But so that might be this podcast might serve as a reminder for people to check into Teams, because if you're on Office 365 and your email is on Office 365, you have Teams available to you.
So it's almost like your iPhone or your smartphone, right? You get all these apps, you get all these capability, and maybe I should use that. Oh, I didn't know it did that. Yeah,
I didn't know we had that.
Well, yeah, and it's we hear that all the time with with our products that we sell. Like, I didn't know that capability on it. So, well, right. Jeff, that's good information. We know a lot of our customers and listeners out there are, adapting to what's going on, and hopefully this was helpful for you to bring some to look at a possible tool to help you kind of work remote and be productive. We know there's a lot going on. And Jeff, anything else you want to add or resources for them to go look at?
Yeah, well, it's of course there are tons of resources out on the that Microsoft has put out there. A lot of the Microsoft Teams user voice community and the technical community, driving adoption community, searching on any of those terms will get you to the right place. The Microsoft Teams blog is great source of information, and some of the things that I guess I'm just looking forward to. We always talk about the advantage of investing in the Microsoft stack and what that means to people, that you're working with a company that at times is so big, and you sort of feel like you lose your voice. Of course, that's why Inovia is here to be your voice with Microsoft, and we've got great relationships there. But the bonus of having a company that big is that they've got all this research and development money, and they're always looking to improve the product. So just like they're always adding new functionality to their ERP stuff, it's the same with Office and with Teams. So the one feature that I'm looking forward to, and I think that we will benefit from, is that they're actually going to use Azure Artificial Intelligence to analyze recordings on the fly and take out background noise. They're going to have a program that just on the fly determines what is background noise and what isn't, and gets rid of that for you. So I know that Tim, our audio engineer and producer on this podcast, happy because and one of, I guess for me personally, they're referring to this as the potato chip filter. So they actually did a Microsoft engineer did a presentation showing how this functionality works. Now it's not rolled out to all Teams clients yet, but they actually were reaching in and I shouldn't be doing that on my. I'm reaching into a bag of potato chips and eating while he was speaking, and it actually filtered out. It's pretty amazing. You can search that term as well. Look at Microsoft Teams potato chip. I think they might be referring to it as a snack filter, but that's sort of stuff that ultimately no one's going to pay extra money for having that functionality, but just having your phone calls be crisp and clean, and especially in this world of remote work that a lot of us find ourselves in, having working from home, having not a private office anymore with a door on it that keeps all that noise out. Those sort of things I think matter, and so some of the new improvements that Teams are coming out with is something else I'm excited about, and I would encourage people to just keep their eye on as you're considering the solution.
Very cool, because during this podcast I couldn't hit the mute button quick enough, but my neighbor is mowing his yard, and my 8-month-old chow puppy Coda wanted to go outside twice, and I'm like, can you wait till the podcast is over?
That's right.
They don't care.
That is something that I actually I think is as I'm watching some of the news, local news and national news, and some of the different shows on network television, and seeing the hosts that are hosting from their homes, it's sort of nice getting a peek into what they're doing, and it's interesting to just to see how people's home work environments, like what they've got to work with compared to I feel spoiled being a remote worker for the last 8 years. I've got a really nice setup, but it's sort of it'll be interesting when all of this is over, how many return to the office and how many prefer working from home. And so I know that it's not for everyone, but I think some people actually get more done.
And maybe we can do a podcast on tips, because I remember when I first started, we had an ad on, I won't say the name, overseas, and it was a different time zone. It was early morning, and when he turned his camera on accidentally, we got to see he didn't even have his pajamas on, if I recall, Jeff.
Yeah. So, well, that actually, that brings up a good point. Like, what do you think about you and I recording this and putting our because I know that certainly for the podcast platform, that's not going to matter, but it might be worth taking doing our next one, turning our cameras on and showing our beautiful faces. What do you think about that? I actually
did shower and shave before this podcast, just in case, we had questions during it, or we share our audio for our listeners, right?
Yeah.
But all right. That'd be a great idea.
Yeah, and certainly I think on YouTube, we'd be sharing the same. We'll have to talk to Tim and see what his thoughts are on editing and how much more work that would be for him. But certainly, we're posting this on YouTube, that audio only. It would certainly make sense to have it as an option. So we could, although we might lose a few viewers if they see our faces, but it's worth the risk.
There you go. Maybe we can bring our dogs to it, bring it up a little bit. But I think I appreciate all your time and going over all the wonderful things that Microsoft Team has to offer. And to all our listeners, you can obviously follow us on all the different platforms for the podcast. You can even go to our website. If you click on resources, you can actually even scroll down and there's a podcast section, and we always have the most current one ready available, but the whole library is available. So if you'd like to go back, and it's Innovia.com, we have a lot of information on there. And as of right now, Jeff, our customer conference is it's still a go. We'll be updating our customers as we get closer to the middle of May on how this is progressing. But you can also follow us on Twitter and even on Facebook. All right, the podcast is over. Have a good rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone.